You're in the bullpen. You might want to watch where you're stepping. Here's American Shorthorn Association CEO Montie Soules.
Welcome to this episode of the Shorthorn Bullpen. We're here in San Antonio, Texas at the National Cattlemen's Beef Association Trade Show and Convention. Today we've got a special guest with us here from the Limousin breed, the executive there, Mark Anderson. He is also the president of the USBC, the U.S. Beef Breeds Council, which is a pretty important group of people, and it's made up of all the execs here of the beef cattle associations here in the United States. That's what the U.S. stands for, of course. So, Mark, tell me a little bit about your background. You're a feedlot guy, you're executive in the Limousin, and just give us a little background information so they can understand this carcass information that we are dealing with UGC now, which is what we control as a Beef Breeds Council. It's right up your alley.
Well, it's vitally important, as you know. I'm very well aware of. It is extremely important. As far as my background, I was primarily in the feed yard business. I grew up on a cow-calf ranch in a small feed yard in northern Colorado, Monty. Actually, I come out of Colorado State and went to work for CattleFax and covered feed yards for 7 years, worked with Randy Block, who's still at CattleFax to this day, and got a pretty good background from people that I had the Texas Panhandle and Colorado feed yard region, and Randy had Kansas. And then when I got done with that, it evolved. I went up to northern Colorado and got back in the feed yard business with Miller Diversified and Jim Miller, and we ran a commodity office and fed about 40,000 cattle at his 2 feed yard locations, one-time capacity. And then actually started managing yards up in Weld County. But I learned in the feed yard industry how important all the tools and all the cattle and genetic supply that these breed associations supply the U.S. beef cattle industry. It's vitally important. The EPDs that are produced, and I learned that business over time the last 14 years, you're the genetic pool that we've taken the cattle inventory from, up there to 132 million head down to below 100 or 90 million cattle, and we're putting out the same amount of beef or as equivalent as what we did, I think it was late 50s, and that's through genetic progress, and that is due to all the work that you do through these breed associations, through the better genetic evaluations that we have, like at IGS. Angus has their own, Hereford has their own, but this carcass information is, the business shifted so much in the 90s. We went from selling straight pounds and running feed yards. We used to weigh cattle up over the scale, shrink them for, I got a check, based off pay weight, and I based off feed yard performance, and we generated closeouts, which were extremely critical to get a cheap cost of gain. And then it was the packers' problem, and that shifted in the 90s when Paul Engler and some others started gridding cattle and selling them on a formula to Tyson, and the JBS started, and all of a sudden we had to start moving that direction, and guess what? A bunch of feed yard managers had to learn that we needed to feed cattle that not only worked for us in the yard, but they had to work at the packing house level as well.
They had to grade. They
had to grade, and we had to maintain a decent kind of yield grade to the cattle as well. Most of the grids, as they are today, I mean, we've got big premiums, as you know, for quality grade, right. And that's really been a push in all these breeds of cattle. But at the same time, in the cattle business, you do things with moderation. You go too far one way, you still got to maintain some yield grade. And what I'm really impressed with, and especially with breeds that have worked on this for a long time, and as I've learned, how the EPDs work, how much better they are than what they were 14 years ago. The phenotypes are so important to training with the genomics now. As you know, the progeny equivalence on it, it's like having 14 to 22 babies on the ground.
Yeah, lifetime production on a cow.
That's right. And these EPDs, when I started in this deal in 2011, after 23 years of feeding cattle, I'd come in and look at EPDs, and I'd see something with a weight trait of 155 and kind of hound gutted, and maybe how did that happen? But I don't see that anymore.
No, It's changed.
It has, and it's been an effort of all these breed associations, Shorthorn included, have done such a great job of recording phenotype data and then advancing with technology. I look at what's happened the last 7 years with IGS, and it's remarkable.
It really is. The things that we do as breed execs, a lot of people don't understand all the things that we have to wear a lot of hats. And part of those hats would be this U.S. Beef Breeds Council that we all are participate. So, and you're the current president, and done a great job of that. I was president a couple of years ago, and we got you to take your turn.
I'm glad you trained me.
Yeah, I didn't train you very much because you're doing better than I did. So we employ UGC, Ultrasound Guidelines Council, and we employ the executive of it, which is Pat Wall, and we have control of that. Basically, that's probably one of the most important things we do as U.S. Beef Breeds Council, and the importance of it, as you just described, is this ultrasound data, keeping these people that are doing it certified, keeping it above board, keeping it honest, keeping it so you can compare apples to apples, and people ain't taking shortcuts, because we do have some of that happening at times.
We do, and I think it's just like any other data. I mean, you want it to be, you want to have a lot of integrity in your data at the end of the day, so it's got to be accurate. All this stuff that's going through and getting scanned, the value of it is that, as far as increasing accuracy on ribeye, marbling, back fat, that scan data is important. If you don't have pedigree data, we're fortunate now because we've got one individual and some other feed yard members that are keeping their pedigreed cattle, and we're tracking them through the plant. We've incorporated that into the run at IGS. But that scan data is vital because everybody gets a shot at that. And it's got to be accurate. It's got to go back to the lab to be certified where that scanner is there to scan the cattle and the lab makes the call.
Yep.
And that's got to happen to have it correct.
Lab's got to read that data when it comes out, because both the technician has to be certified by UGC, Ultrasound Guidelines Council, and the lab has to be certified. And there's only 2 or 3 labs that are certified. And there's a limited amount of techs in all reality, but it's got to go back through that lab to have that certification, and because they've all been tested.
Yeah, they make the call on the scan.
Yeah, and when we sit there and look at what you're talking about, the EPD systems that we've made the advances with, we look at the genomics. So this carcass data, as geneticists work at things and the things that we do within our industry, that's one of the highest heritable traits that we select for. So if we don't have real data that's honest and that's governed, we're just kidding ourselves and everybody else.
Yep, it's the old saying when you're feeding cattle, crap in, crap out.
Yeah.
So it's got to be quality data, and it's got to be through certified labs, and it's no different than many other thing that you do in life. I mean, you've got to go for accuracy, and the thing of it is, if you don't have the ability to track pedigreed cattle from start to finish, because you think of the cattle business, there's like 7 sectors. You start at the cow-calf man. Topper Thorpe always told me he's in the driver's seat. Okay, he's the one making the product. Everybody else past that's a margin operator, so it's somewhat predatory in nature, and it shouldn't be that way, but it is.
Yeah.
But everybody else is working off that genetics from that genetic pool. So to measure all the things to get the kind of progress we've made, we didn't. It wasn't, when I left feeding cattle in 2011, you did not fed cattle much over 13 1/4 pay weight. That shrunk with a 4. And you started getting docks for heavies, whatever.
So that'd be a carcass weight of what, 850?
Yeah, and now, as you know, we're feeding these cattle up to 1,800 pounds. They got to have genetic power to them to do that, stay feed efficient, convert, and then at the end of the day, still have a carcass that's going to hit choice up, hopefully upper 2/3 or higher, and up into the prime.
Yeah, because our customer base is requiring it. Our consumer, that's all they want.
Well, and there's 2 keys there in my mind. The cattle got to feed with an efficient closeout on an effective dry matter conversion. You got to try to make the cattle grade, but producing fat is very inefficient as well.
Yeah.
So I can just see it happening already through genomics and stuff. There's enough weapons in the war chest. You can maximize that and have enough cattle to still yield grade 1 to 3 level, hit upper 2/3 of choice and higher. You're going to have some 4s and 5s, but over time, with more scan data and the accuracies go up, we'll eliminate some of those 4s and 5s. Plus, we've got cattle that can feed efficiently to those bigger weights and not blow their clothes out of the water.
Right.
So,
no, that's why when we look at our roles as executives, we it's our job to try to keep this all stuff on the right train track, and then when we come together as executives, as all the executives of all the beef breeds, it's really important we got the right guy running the show, like we got with a Patrick Wall, that's looking out for the best things for the beef industry, and that we make sure that we all do the same thing and we all collaborate to be honest with one another and have a data that comes back out so that our producers, doesn't matter what breed we're in, can believe what they're looking at, and it's comparable for bull buyers to look at and the feedlot guys to look at, because as we go forward, this data is going to become much more important, and it's going to become more shareable through AI, artificial intelligence, not breeding a cow, and all that sort of stuff. It's going to change the world.
It's incredible in my mind how far we've come in 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
And if, a young person's out there, if they want to start new in the business and they want a chance to make 200 super cows, and if they've got an eye, and we still got to look at cattle, as you know, phenotype.
Yeah.
It got to be structurally correct and have the things that work, udder, structure on the whole deal. And a visual. But now the performance in the cattle is so much better documented through the better EPDs and the genomics. And then and genomics itself is not the answer. As you guys know, you got to have weight trait, birth weight, wean weight, as much yearly weight, scan data. It's pretty exciting because, like you said, technology accelerates over time. So what's good today, 5 years from now, that took 20 years to get there is going to happen in 18 months.
Yeah.
And some of this stuff, and we're going to get into stuff that's, I just know this. We always talk about ERTs, or economically relevant traits. My whole life, some of the biggest heartburn I had once I had genetically good cattle that could perform, so I could lay a hedge off. I knew their performance, and they were predictable cattle. You wanted to buy the good ones because they let you sleep at night on your risk management. But at the end of the day, you look at things that are going to happen, like health issues. We spend so much on, BVD, BRD, treatment drugs, death loss that costs us